Camp Wigan was run by a retired Army colonel, Mr. Bradshaw. He had a ruddy complexion and a manner that matched. He ran the camp like a Chinese warlord. One morning he would be at breakfast reading orders and thoughts for the day. The next day he would be gone. He left in his wake a set of regulations and schedules designed for the Boy Scouts. They might have made sense to a group of troopers who could move between the craft center and the pool in 5 minutes. But for us, each move was a major campaign. Just getting to the pool took half an hour, with another half hour needed to get everyone out of his clothing and into the water. As a result, the schedule was like a merry-go-round. We were always moving, getting ready to move, or finishing a move. Besides not having enough time to really complete anything, the kids never got a chance to play with the other boys or with the girls. At breakfast, Dom and I decided to talk with our kids about the day ahead as if we could plan it ourselves. Following breakfast, we decided to go directly to the pool. As we approached it, we saw it being used by a group of girls. We simply joined them. The kids were self-conscious at first, and then flirtatious in an adolescent's way. The boys worried about their trunks being tightly tied. I had to comb their hair before they would venture to the side of the pool. The magic of sun and water. At first, the boys kept to one side of the pool with the girls attached to the other. But soon the sun and water worked their magic. With coy glances and gossipy chatter, the girls attracted the attention of the boys. The boys showed off, relying on stunts of bravery to claim attention. Even Thomas, the shyest of all, putted about the pool on his barge of inner tubes. I caught him smiling for the first time when he gently nudged a girl in an equally high pile of tubes. In a soft but deliberate way, she bumped him back. The dance of affection with taunts, displays of prowess, and just plain sexual play was taking place before me. The kids eventually made a chain of bobbing bodies that moved around and around the pool, interrupted by occasional water fights. By the end of the hour, they were teaching each other their special water tricks. Dressing took place at record speed. There was a new excitement in the air. Leaving the pool area with a cluster of children, I noticed that a blind girl named Mary was wearing an acorn necklace. She was a tall, angular girl with a kind face and warm smile. She seemed to be aware of our presence as we started up the hill toward our cabin. I turned to Martin. He still had on his necklace. So did Thomas. Then Arid complained, "I've lost my necklace. Hey, can we stop so I can make another?" Benny asked, "Where did you lose it?" Spider chided, "Couldn't be you gave it to Mary, could it?" Arid looked slightly sick and then relieved as Martin saved the day with an idea. "Let's make a bunch of necklaces, okay?" Benny not letting go. "Yeah, we can give them to our girlfriends." Thomas surprised us all by talking. "Not a bad idea." That afternoon we set about making acorn necklaces by the dozen. By the end of the day we had cornered the acorn market. There were none left in sight. Throughout the days that followed, the kids gave necklaces to everyone at camp. The other kids, the counselors, the cook, and even Mrs. Nelson, the nurse. They all became members of the Acorn Society. The breakup of the schedule and the giving of the necklaces drew the camp together and gave us confidence to seek new adventures. One evening, the usual recorded taps and Scout pledge were followed on the loudspeaker by an announcement that special merit badges would be awarded to all Scouts who climbed Lookout Mountain. Benny picked up the message. "If the Boy Scouts can climb that mountain, can we?" Dom and I exchanged glances of uncertainty, and soon the kids sensed our doubt. Spider and Benny wanted to try it. Thomas and Arid didn't think it was such a good idea. Martin just stood there and started stamping his feet in an exaggerated march step. Pumping his arms and marching in place, he made it clear he was going to climb that mountain. There was nothing to do but follow. In the camp office we found a map that gave trail markings for the hike up to Lookout Mountain, a round trip of 6 miles. We had no idea of the terrain. For supplies we took a bag of apples, some carrots, raisins, canteens of water, and kitchen knives for protection against any wild animals we might encounter. We left camp at the first sight of morning. As we passed the rows of cabins, a few sleepy campers heard our clanking progress and asked where we were going. Benny was our voice. To Lookout Mountain. The wheelchair wagon train. Dom led the way, pushing Spider. Next came Benny, wheeling himself, followed by Martin pushing Arid. I took up the rear of the column, pushing Thomas. We looked and sounded like an old-fashioned wagon train. There was little talk and no humor. A sense of fear overwhelmed any thought of adventure. Each curve in the trail presented new obstacles. Trailside bushes and branches slashed against the wheels and twined like tentacles around the spokes and footrests. As the trail grew narrower, the effort required to push the chairs increased. For the first time in my experience of pushing a wheelchair, I felt Thomas shift and lift his weight in an effort to ease the strain of movement. It was a slight adjustment, but it meant he was pulling his body as hard as I was pushing. Ahead, I saw that Arid and Spider were equally at work, lifting their weight and pushing branches aside, using whatever energy they had to help our forward progress. When the trail started upward, we had to turn around and pull the chairs from behind. Benny was forced to pull his wheels and then brake with each stroke. Our progress was reduced to pull, stop, pull, stop. Perspiring and heaving for breath, the thought of going back haunted me, but I didn't want to turn around. Reaching exhaustion, Benny had to stop. He didn't say a word, just stopped pushing. His chair slowly slid to a halt against Martin. Like a train being derailed, we twisted to a halt. Chairs and bodies stacked upon each other. Without giving anyone the chance to think about our predicament, Spider started talking. In a shrill and quick voice, he began playing the role of Expedition Padre. Dramatically taking his canteen, he sprinkled water on the hillside and proclaimed, "I hereby name this place Benny's Landing, and claim this place and all its riches for the Acorn Society." He crossed himself and blessed the soil. The drama gave us a chance to relax and realize our accomplishment. We looked around and felt the warmth of the day and the aroma of damp grass. Insects hummed, leaves turned to the sun, morning dew drifted upward. Everyone seemed entranced. Here we were, sitting in the middle of a forest with wheelchairs that had known only city streets and convenience ramps. Again, Spider broke the silence. "Well," he said, "what are we waiting for? We have more places to discover than this, you know." With this moment of rest and Spider's encouragement, we pushed on. By the end of the morning, we had climbed into the foothills toward Lookout Mountain. Spider talked all the way, naming birds, plants, and historic sites of interest such as Benny's Rock and Benny's Vista. Arid directed the use of our food supplies, dreaming up delicious ice cream sodas and banana splits. Spider created what he called the Acorn marching song, and we all joined in. The final assault. After a succession of starts and stops, we reached the final grade to the summit. We had covered 2.5 miles, but the final 200 yards looked straight up. More forbidding than the incline, however, was the deterioration of the trail. It simply stopped. The final grade was a hillside of slippery slate rock and loose gravel. There was no way to pull or push the chairs any farther. The wheels simply spun in the loose gravel. Spider called this place desperation, but no one laughed. Dom suggested that he and I carry everyone up the rest of the way, but Thomas vetoed the idea. "Not me. I'm not going up there on someone's back." During our deliberation, Martin had moved several feet up the hill without our notice. He called down to us, "Hey, you guys, it's easy." He was sitting down, facing downhill. By moving his legs under him in a squat position and then pushing back, he edged up the hill in a sitting posture as though he were rowing a boat. He made slow but steady progress. "Martin," said Benny, "you're amazing." Spider added, "Make sure that man gets the mountain cross." Thomas and Arid were still doubtful. Leaving their wheelchairs was not easy. After a long debate and several more demonstrations by Martin, we decided to make the ascent. Dom sat against the hill, and I placed Spider in his lap, using belt buckles and safety straps from the wheelchairs. I tied the two together. Dom tried a few rows up the hill. It worked. Benny was next in line. He wanted to try it by himself. In a trial effort, he worked his way right out of his pants. At his insistence, we tied a pillow from one of the chairs to his butt. Using all his strength, he could just manage to drag his body up the hill. Martin and Arid were next. I gently placed Arid in Martin's lap and bound them together. Thomas and I were at the end of the line, with him strapped to my lap. Like a caterpillar, we edged our way up the slope. Martin's technique was marvelous. We moved in unison. First the legs pushing against the hill, then a quick push to a stop to rest, and upward again. At 2 o'clock we reached the summit. Spider presented the mountain with a necklace, not as a conqueror, but as a friend. There was no jubilation. What had been the ultimate victory was now a matter of fact. In the end, we had discovered something as simple and ever-present as the sky. The 7 of us lay on our backs and simply watched the sky. Even Martin seemed to study the clouds above us. It was wonderful. The return trip to camp was quiet and took only half the time. This time we knew where we were going and passed familiar places. Our pace quickened as we approached camp, either because of the dinner that awaited us or the chance to tell everyone about our climb. Unruly behavior. We expected some reaction when we trooped in late to the dining hall in a cloud of dust, but everyone was strangely quiet. It didn't take long to find out what had happened. The camp director, Colonel Bradshaw, had been alarmed of the randomness of camp activities and various examples of unruly behavior. We all knew what that meant. In addition to our unauthorized mountain climb, Dom had organized an afternoon eating club attended by 40 to 50 kids, using food liberated from the dining hall kitchen. Most of these kids had never held a knife, let alone sliced a carrot. Dom simply closed his eyes and trusted that their determination could overcome any palsy or lack of sight. He was right. Another example of unruly behavior was an impromptu archery class organized by several women counselors. The range wasn't the safest place to be when they practiced, but it was thrilling to watch children struggle to use their chairs and bodies to accomplish such a complex and difficult skill. Mrs. Nelson, the camp nurse, also caused some trouble. An older, matronly woman, her face was always heavily made up with bright red lipstick, rouge, and sweeping eyebrows. Some of the girls started asking how she did it, and before long, many of them were going around camp with their first taste of lipstick, rouge, mascara, and perfume. Of course, they all thought they looked beautiful. Another problem was a black African named Lenny, who taught the entire camp dozens of songs that seemed to go on forever. They were a relief from the loudspeaker and its Boy Scout anthems and bugle call. Every evening one cabin would start and the others would softly join in. The prospect of ending Dom's eating club, the straight arrow archery team, Mrs. Nelson's beauty salon, and Lenny's songfest was out of the question. The children were learning, growing, and most important, happy. I measured my own change over these days by realizing what an unintentional benefit it was to be in this Boy Scout camp. It was not a place for handicapped children, and the kids knew it. There were no ramps, handrails, or railings, only ordinary stairs, bunk beds, bathrooms, and hills. It was a place for children with normal expectations and fantasies for life, a place to dream and play. The dance of the wheelchairs. Play we did. Some of the girls organized a dance. It was crazy and beautiful. We all dressed up. The boys perfumed themselves with wild root and Dixie peach. The girls wore ponytails and lots of ribbons. For music, we had recorded records loaned by Nurse Nelson. We also had some down-home country music and one record of the bunny hop. The dance started like every dance. Boys on one side of the dining hall, girls on the other facing them. 3 records played and no one moved. Janie, one of the girl counselors, took the hands of some of the blind girls and made a line. She started describing out loud what she was doing. There were great squeals of, "Oh no!" Janie walked over to the record player and put on her favorite country song. She sashayed to the waiting line of girls, broke into the middle of the line, and shouted, "Here we go! 4 steps forward, 4 steps back. Turn around and slap your back." She was yelling a spontaneous square dance call. I grabbed Martin and some kids and chairs and we followed Janie's call. We moved forward, we moved back, formed a circle, circled right, turned around, and said good night. Pretty soon the whole hall of kids and counselors was moving to Janie's call. Not all together, but moving. Once you start, it's hard to stop. Janie called a Virginia reel. She had the boys peel off in couples and parade, wiggle or wheel down the corridor of clapping, shouting kids. There was a good deal of jockeying to line up with the right partner. With our kids, the chance to dance with a girl brought a mixed reaction. Benny would have nothing to do with this nonsense. Martin had the dilemma of three girls, or, as he put it, sharing myself with the ladies. Arid, of course, had to dance with Mary. Thomas wanted to watch. Spider was courting his favorite girl counselor. I don't think you could call what we did a classic Virginia reel. Every dancer had his own style. They slipped, slid, and just had fun. By the end of the dance, the kids and counselors were making up their own rules. Groups of 4 or 5 children and counselors would grab hands and stroll down the center of 2 rows of clapping dancers. Martin was the last one down. He had the biggest grin on his face I'd ever seen. He also had 3 young ladies. Finally, the big moment of the dance arrived. Janie asked for quiet. Then, with the crowd at attention, she announced the crowning of the Camp Wiggin King and Queen. Mrs. Nelson, the middle-aged nurse, was the perfect queen. She preened and threw kisses to everyone. But who would be king? After consulting with the girl campers and the camp cook, the girl counselors proudly proclaimed the next king of Camp Wiggin to be Aaron Gerwalski. Who? That's our Arid, Benny exclaimed. Our man Arid did it. He made it. Yeah, Spider added, and he gets to kiss all the girls. Aaron was a perfect choice. In grand style, we wheeled him to his waiting throne and his queen. She picked him up and gave him a big kiss, bright red lipstick right on the forehead. Buffeted by all this attention, Aaron was speechless, embarrassed, and thrilled, all at once. Someone yelled, "Aaron, you're just neat." The comment caught his need. He turned and smiled at the direction of the remark, and his expression ignited the crowd into 3 cheers for the king and queen of Camp Wiggin. It's not easy being a king one moment and a child the next. Wheeling Aaron back to our cabin, I couldn't see his face in the evening shadows, but I could feel his body in the chair. Bent forward in his chair, body shaking, he cupped his hands over his face, trying to smother repeated sobs. Tears were streaming down his face as he turned in embarrassment from other campers. "I've never been given anything like this," he cried. "I've never been a king before. I'm so happy, but why am I crying?" Before I could think of a good answer, he asked, "Do kings cry?" I could only respond, "Yes." Somehow we managed a truce with Colonel Bradshaw. We continued the usual round of activities, at our own pace, but also organized a water extravaganza complete with pirates, divers, and a water ballet that came as a surprise to Colonel Bradshaw and the parents. When they arrived to meet their children, parents conditioned to strained greetings and were delighted at their exuberance. Brothers and sisters accustomed to pampering or resenting these kids found themselves playing with them. The ballet ended the summer camp and our 2 weeks of companionship. We exchanged quiet goodbyes. I was reminded of our first meeting. The silent exchange that took place then was happening again. Children were being passed from counselors back to parents. One by one, the members of the Acorn Society departed. Benny rolled himself slowly to his waiting car. Spider was handed from arm to arm. Martin walked, holding my hand, leading me. Thomas had to be carried. His eyes seemed older and sadder. Aaron wanted to push himself to show his parents his new strength. After everyone had left, I thought back over the last 2 weeks. I think these kids understood and felt many things I would never comprehend. For 2 weeks they had been mountain climbers, fellow members of a special club, and kings, and yet they were dying. As Nurse Nelson had told us, most would not live past their teens. She was right. Dom and I kept in close touch with the 5 kids in our cabin. They are all dead now. Thomas and Aaron died 1 year after that summer camp. Spider was killed by a car the following year. Martin died in a car accident. Benny was the last and the only one to have a funeral. At the service, his mother gave me an envelope from Benny. Inside, I found a crumped, dried-out acorn necklace. She said he gave them to everyone he met.